Hey, peace and blessings to you. My name is Jerry B. I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. Welcome to another exciting episode of the EntreMusician. As you know, this is the space where we concentrate on the mindset, discipline, and focus of the EntreMusician, which is why this episode is so special, because we're bringing on and introducing to some, presenting to others, this incredible EntreMusician, multi-instrumentalist, plays wonderful guitar, sings, an incredible composer who has experienced the grace of people like George Benson, Chaka Khan, Anita Pointer, Nick Colionne recording her great compositions. She is a force to be reckoned with, has worked with saxophonists as broad as Walter Beasley and Branford Marsalis, Steve Cole, and she's the author of 2 incredible books, including The Biology of Beating Stress. She's the founder of the NuDay Holistic Health Consulting Foundation, I guess. We'll find out about all of that and more. I'm telling you, this is going to be a great experience. It's my pleasure to present Miss Jeanne Ricks. How are you, dear heart?
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful. Even during these times, we have to keep that mindset going and be thankful for things like a fabulous day. We've actually got some sunshine, so.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Well, I am really very intrigued with your career. When we put the EntreMusician together several years ago, it was creative people like you that we were looking for to highlight, to feature, and to let other creatives know that there's so much that can be done. And you really embody, as I've researched your work, as I've looked at your videos, as I've enjoyed your incredible music. I mean, you're doing it all, and I'm grateful to know you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's all about trying to find, especially now, new avenues to express yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The things that we thought were, like gigging and stuff like that. Ooh, it's been a rough year. So it's important to keep trying to find new avenues for expression, you know?
Absolutely. Now, I've got several questions to ask you, but you hit one on the head right now. And the one thing that I was looking for, and you can tell me if I didn't do my homework correctly, but in the great work that you've done with respect to writing your book, talking about stress, anxiety, talking about the body and cleansing. Now, did I not see anything that connected that work that you do with creatives? Because you've just mentioned with this pandemic and the time that we're in, there's been incredible stress for musicians and artistic people. Have you not interlinked any of your coursework to EntreMusicians? So I haven't done my homework. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I have a website called Vibro Acoustics NY. Vibro Acoustics NY. And my goal was to find ways to make my music more healing. I was already doing music. I had done for the Weather Channel. I was doing the local on the 8s, the smooth jazz behind the local on the 8s forecast. And so I had a lot of smooth jazz stuff. And I was making income from that. But then NBC decided they weren't going to use outside music anymore. So that left me without a gig.
Sure.
And I started looking for ways, because I was under so much stress. And I was like, people always say my music is soothing and How can I elevate that to the next level and actually help people to really relax, And I found, you know how you dip your toe in the water and then you find out there's an ocean? Oh, yeah. I found this ocean of research on how music can be used for relaxation and how specifically the brain works. Like as you and I are speaking, right? If you had on an EEG cap that kind of looked like a swim cap, but it has all these nodules, these nodes in it that connect to a machine that reads your brain waves, it would show that you're in beta because we're engaged, we're speaking, you're fully conscious, focused. But if you were, say, meditating or watching TV, which is what advertisers have counted on since the 50s, you slip down, your conscious mind slips to the back just a little bit You're still aware, but your conscious mind steps back, and your subconscious mind is more to the fore. And so it is therefore more
capture,
more malleable. Yeah, a little. Yeah, you can put some stuff in there, which is again what advertisers count on, is us being in this relaxed state, and so we just want to buy chips all of a sudden.
Right.
So in that, I found a mentor named Gary Robert Buchanan, amazing person out of Utah who does all this work using tones, using sound frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And he mentored me, and I learned to use those tones to help people relax and to help the mind. He's got it's an amazing array of illnesses that he actually treats. It's called cymatics. Mm-hmm. I just work with stress, obviously, and PTSD. Mm-hmm. I help people literally find how to relax. We get, if you will, normalized towards being tense. We just expect to carry a certain amount of tension. Mm-hmm. And that's not natural, but it's natural for us. It becomes our natural state. Mm-hmm. I can teach people in minutes how to take that and make that relaxation happen. Now they're retraining their brain. Now they're like, oh, is this what it feels like to be relaxed? Oh my goodness, mm-hmm. that knot is gone. All of this is, wow. You know, I teach people how to get to sleep without drugs, how to, you know what I mean? All through using sound. One of the most ancient, you can't get better than that. You know, they actually have found that just drumming, you know how in Africa we had the drum.
Yes.
Just drumming, that drone, that tone, just doing that literally brings down the heart rate, changes the brainwave activity. I mean, there's scientific studies behind this. This isn't just woo.
Oh, no,
this is the real deal.
Sure.
And so I put together, using the tones that Gary thankfully shared with me, I put music underneath them of different styles and stuff, because not everybody's into smooth jazz. So I did a little classical stuff, a little this, that, and the other. And I also have programs to help people focus and concentrate, because it's not just for relaxation. Just like I said, we're in beta now.
Yeah.
I can help people lift up so that they are more focused if they're working on, I helped some guys get through the bar exam, that kind of stuff. I also do clinical hypnosis.
Yes.
So yeah, I figured out a way, Jerry, to make it all.
Wow. Well, I didn't see that particular website. You know, I went, I previewed your book. And, you know, of course, I listened to your music online. I checked out your website, but I didn't see the Vibro. So I need to avail myself to it.
Vibro Acoustics NY.
Vibro Acoustics NY being New York.
And also, it's also, I just got soundhealth.me, because that's a little long. So I put up soundhealth.me as a little smaller.
Sure. Well, we'll link to all of that, because, you know, that was the one thing that, you know, even as I was telling my wife prior to our conversation, I said, well, I'm hoping that is a way, because I've talked to many musicians, especially, you know, it's amazing that we're almost at a year now since the shutdown happened. And I knew literally tens and tens and tens, maybe 100, 150 right off the bat. That was all their income. Some of them had 5 or 6 sources. And so, as you can imagine, a lot of stress. You know, thank God for the technology. We were able to kind of pivot and adapt. But, you know, just dealing with that emotional realm of, okay, what's next? What's next? Because many of them full-time musicians, how am I going to pay my mortgage? What's happening with the light bill? You know, these were real concerns. So thank you for, you know, thinking ahead and bringing about a platform that we will link to, and hopefully it will provide.
My concern also is that we're not getting the next generation. We're losing time. You know, these kids aren't getting musical instruction, because, as you know, it's difficult online.
Sure.
Because of the time, the time difference is really, and kids aren't inspired to pick up an instrument if they haven't seen people playing. I mean, do you know what I mean? You need that inspiration, and that's not happening right now. And I worry about what's going to happen for instrumentalists. I mean, there are people making beats and doing all that kind of stuff online, but
real,
I'm worried. Yeah, I'm worried about the instrumentalists. What's going to happen with that? You know, where are we going to get that next group of inspired people to take us to the next level, especially with within the African American community? Because you know, as our music moves everything forward, it always has. I mean, if you look at the roots of, well, slave songs, field songs, that was the roots, the genesis of the blues.
That's correct.
Well, that one thing, the blues spawned gospel and jazz. Right. I mean, well, at that time it was ragtime. Everything splintered off of the blues, and then came rhythm and blues. You know, which was, you know, kind of all still dance music, but it was considered, you know, race music. Right. Come on, what?
Right.
And that became rock and roll. You know, and then you got jazz, which splintered off as we got more exposure to electronic instruments and that kind of thing. Well, that splintered a whole new thing, new genre. Right. But then you've got this blending, this melding, this mixing pot that happened. And, you know, it's almost like we are so, as a people, so creative, so effortlessly that we drop off, we leave behind our own creative, and we just keep moving to the next thing. Right. Well, that's why people like the Rolling Stones can still fill an a massive stadium. But our musicians of the same generation can't get arrested. I mean, it blows my mind. But in Japan and in other parts of the world, they value our roots music more than we do, which is strange.
You're preaching.
Kind of, but I wonder what's going to happen in terms of the next branch of music, because it's like, because music was taken out of the schools back in, what was that, the 80s?
Yes.
And instruments weren't freely available to our people. They started making beats. They started doing what they could. They pulled off of recordings and you know, downloaded
sampling and
created a whole new amazing genre. Come on, what? That stuff is, some of it's hot. Whoa. Sure. But there's not any, the next generation of music hasn't happened. And I'm wondering what's going to happen next. What's it going to be? I'm excited, you know, but I wonder what it's going to be.
Absolutely. I mean, you said a mouthful there, because on one hand, in mentioning the Rolling Stones, you know, there's this anchor in rock music whereby they honor those who have gone before, you know. So, you know, if we were to, like, we had the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is in Cleveland, Ohio. But if we had the Funk Museum, like that was in Dayton, or soul or R&B, and really paid homage to the Aretha Franklins, the Sam Cookes, and those, you know, we don't seem, I mean, we move forward, you're right about that, but we don't seem to take an anchor, because any 12-year-old will know who Metallica is. They will know who the Rolling Stones are. They would, you know, any contemporary 12-year-old suburban kid would know, hey, this is the roots of rock and roll right here. They know the Beatles. I mean, because Rolling Stone magazine will put the Beatles out next week, just like all those guys are still here, and push the music forward. But we won't do the same thing. I mean,
no, I talked to a 12-year-old the other day. He'd never heard of Miles Davis. I was like, ooh, okay.
Or Otis Redding. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
But country western music, they honor their own. Wait, basically country western is now the new R&B. I mean, have you noticed?
I've noticed. I've noticed, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just, you know, as you said before, you know, we owning the music, this coming down from our ancestors, we should have more respect for it. We should give it the place of value that it absolutely needs.
But where are they going to learn to value it? Where do they get that? You know what I mean? That in education about their history. They don't even know. Where would they get it? Do you know what I mean?
I think it's you and I think it's our generation. I think the responsibility is really on our shoulders. I have a video, and it's long gone. My oldest daughter is 38 years old, right? Okay, wow. So I have this video that I put out of her putting on a record. Like, she didn't know where to put the stylus, on the vinyl, because when she grew up, and I never thought of it, when she was growing up in her home, it was always CDs. So she didn't know 8 tracks. She didn't know cassette. She just knew, okay, put the CD in, but she had trouble, like, where do I set it? So it's on me. I said, I've got to do more. I've got to do more. So I just broke out the vinyl, got it out of the closet, and I said, hey, here's what we need to go through. And so now she knows, this is Sam Cooke. This is Otis Redding. Oh, yeah.
And those are the pioneers. Yeah, Sam Cooke. After all, Sam Cooke was the inspiration for Aretha Franklin and many others who came on. He broke that barrier of the, if you will, the gospel styled music and brought it to the popular genre. A lot of people were pissed at Sam initially. There was he got a little flack for that.
Sure.
But then it broke the barrier, just like when Aretha Franklin switched from Columbia Records, where they had her trying to be Dinah Washington, which was with moderate success. She was doing classics, but then when she went to Atlantic and she broke out with RESPECT,
boom.
Do you realize there is a demarcation, literally, in the way female singers approached a song from when that 45 came out ever after that? Everybody had to respond to that. Even Patti LaBelle was doing the Bluebells, and they were just doing after Aretha came out with that.
The grits.
Yes. And I think, wasn't that an Otis Redding song, Respect? Wasn't
I
that?
Believe so. I believe he wrote 2 or 3 for Aretha.
Yeah.
Go back to my research.
Yeah, I was sad that we lost her. We've lost so many people. It's crazy.
We have. Oh boy, you've opened up a whole new world, because here's one thing that I really appreciated about you in watching one of your videos, and you did this acoustic cover of Lift Every Voice, and I'm going, you know what? When I talk to her, she has to record it. You have to record and release that without fail. Beautiful, beautiful rendition. If it were not so, I wouldn't tell you. I wouldn't even say it. Why try to butter you up? But I thought, man, that's a really unique take. You got to put it out.
Thank you. It was, I did We Shall Overcome many years ago. I woke up one morning, Jerry, and I'm not like, Miss Civil Rights or whatever, you know what I mean? I woke up and I was hearing this rendition of We Shall Overcome. I'm minding my own business. You know what I mean? Doing my thing.
Yeah.
Trying to write new music. Anyway, so I heard this thing, and it would not leave me alone. Literally, it was just, and it kept expanding and getting bigger. And so I sat down, and for the next, 30 hours or something, I just worked on that arrangement, trying to catch all the parts. I don't have it here. I have a little dictaphone that I keep by the bed because I often wake up with new songs going through my head.
There you go.
It's a wonderful gift. I mean, I realize that nothing is new and everything is a compilation, but it sounds new to me. And anyway, so
rework it.
Yeah. So after I finished the arrangement, I was setting up the microphone to do the vocals, and I suddenly realized what I was doing, what this song meant, and the weight of it, and how many people it had carried, and oh my God, I got really kind of scared to do the vocal. I mean, seriously, I was like, how do I approach it? I mean, what do I, seriously, I looked at that microphone and I was like, oh my God, this song, and same thing with Lift Every Voice, that song. It's so much more than an anthem. It is. I mean, it carried people. Do you realize there were people who were Fannie Lou Hamer, Ralph Abernathy, Medgar Evers, these people who marched and bled for us, who went to jail. She had an eye that was just, she lost because she was beat by some man trying to keep her from voting.
Exactly.
And so when you do those songs, I'm always aware of the reverence of a song like Lift Every Voice and Sing and We Shall Overcome. And I want to make sure that I do it, you know what I mean? That I pay that homage to.
You did it wonderfully. I mean that wholeheartedly. And I thought the simplicity of just the acoustic guitar was magical.
Thank you. I'll record it next on that. Thank you.
Yeah, you can give me the thank you credit after you.
I just did an all-nighter. Actually, I literally have had like 2 hours of sleep.
That's the way we roll, though.
I sent you the track.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me for a song that I had done on my album, Make It Work. Mm-hmm. It's called War and Insufficient Peace. So not War and Peace, but War and Insufficient Peace. Yes, and they wanted to, they're doing a peace project. It's a collection of eclectic musicians put together by Bobby Irving, Robert Irving III. He was a producer for Miles Davis for many, many years and did his live shows too. Anyway, he asked for this song and they had enough of a budget for me to be able to use live drums. Do you understand?
I do.
Not samples.
No, I'm a drummer. I'm a drummer, so I know. I understand.
Oh my God, it was so wonderful. But believe me, it's been so long since I worked with live drum tracks, you know, because I studied engineering and I've done recording for live drums, but not in a long, long time. I got these tracks, it was like, oh my God, there's no separation. Oh my God, because I'm used to samples.
Oh yeah.
You've got nice separation. Now you know what I mean? You get the foot track and it's just the foot. This had foot and hi-hat and everything. I was like, oh my God. I wanted to process it. You know, you wanted to process the hi-hat a little bit, but that meant it was going to bleed over into, never mind. Anyway.
No, that's it. We're the EntreMusician, so we get it. We get it. But you did the mix. The mix, however, was very good. Now that is your mix.
Thank you. You heard it?
I did hear it as soon as you sent it.
Oh, thank you. It was a beast.
No, very good. So let's give credit to the drummer. I'm a drummer, so we got to give that drummer credit.
Know his name.
Oh.
I'll find out.
Well, let me ask you this. What was it recorded? Were the drums sent to you? Did he record it?
The drums were sent to me. So they used my track. Now on my track, the bass is Hilliard Green, the acoustic bass that you heard on that. And of course, I'm playing the supporting keyboards and all the other instruments. And so all of that stuff had been done. It's on the album, Make It Work, with electronic drums that I programmed.
Right.
So this was an opportunity to expand the piece a little bit. And like I said, have the player, they flew me the tracks yesterday at like 5 o'clock and told me, we need this by tomorrow morning. Really?
Really? That's how it works, right? Yeah. Well, no, you did great. I mean, I thought it was very well produced.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
So this is going to be on a compilation called The Peace Project.
Yes,
and
exactly.
When are they expecting the release?
I'll have to give you more information. They haven't sent me the rest of it. It's forthcoming.
Excellent. So tell me about the moment, the time, the dispensation when you knew that you were going to go into music full time. When was that moment?
Really? You want?
I want it, yeah.
I was at Syracuse University as a pre-law student.
Mm-hmm.
I had done lots and lots of music, but my father, you know, parents, you know how you guys are.
Listen to that. We don't live vicariously through our children. My name is not Joe Jackson, okay?
So I'm sitting in class one day and I had been doing really well. Don't get me wrong. I had like a 3.8, something like that. Because I've always read a lot. Both of my parents were teachers, you know, and both of my parents were musicians. My mother was a classical pianist and my dad played jazz. He played that stride style, you know?
Yes.
And matter of fact, he had a bachelor's and a master's in music. Both of them had their bachelor's in music. And then he got his PhD in anthropology at a time when, you know, they weren't helping Black people do that. They tried to discourage him in every kind of way. Wow. But he used that to study ethnomusicology. that anthropology PhD was based on his, one of his theses is on the roots of gospel music. It's fantastic. He went around the South with this recorder that recorded on wire, okay? And he went around the South to all these small little churches back in the woods and over in this creek, and he recorded all these gospel, musicians, and he wrote a thesis on that. And so these are the people that I came from. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting in class at Syracuse. I was the only minority in my class of any kind. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what the heck am I doing here? And we had spent I want to say the whole quarter on one loophole in a contract. We were, discussing all the angles of it and it was fascinating. But I realized, it dawned on me, all at once, wait a minute, law isn't about fairness. It's just about winning.
Excellent.
It has nothing
the advantage. Yeah.
Yes, it has nothing to do with justice. It blew my mind. I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to end up working for a public defender's office trying to get justice for people, and justice doesn't exist. All I'll ever be able to get for them is a deal and maybe a little money, but I won't be able to get justice for them. Wow. I'm going to end up across the aisle from one of these idiots, and they're going to be working for a major corporation making buku bucks, and I'm going to be working as, oh no, I can't do this.
Wow. What a revelation.
Oh my God, seriously, in that moment, it was like, oh no, this isn't about justice. The legal profession is just about winning in whatever way you can. Oh, it blew my mind. I was so naive, I really thought it was about justice. So in that, I literally applied, I think the next day, to Berklee College of Music up in Boston because they had a film scoring department. My major is in film scoring. And that's what I hope to still do some. Now, I did one thing for Francis Ford Coppola for a film called Assassination Tango, but I haven't really scored a major film. And that is, let's put it out there, that's what I'm wanting to do, is score a major film. There aren't Black women that are allowed to do that. What they didn't teach us in school was certain things are boys' clubs, and they're not looking for you. And especially with movies, most of these guys have a production team that they've been working with pretty much since they got out of film school. Do you know what I mean? They create that team for themselves. And so if you haven't gotten in that
network,
you are screwed. So like I said, I did music for the Weather Channel. I've done other small films, stuff for NYU film students, that kind of stuff, because I'm in New York.
Yeah. Wow.
But I haven't had that opportunity to really score a true film. And that's a goal of mine, is to really get out there and do that.
That's excellent. So after graduating from Berklee, then the CDs came, or did you go out on the road, or what was the journey?
Yeah, because I'm more of a writer than a performer. All of my friends got out there and were really like Branford and Walter Beasley and oh gosh, who else was out there? So many, Michelle Farrell, all these folks. They got out there and they started, really making waves for themselves. I, as a writer, like I said, I got a few things like the George Benson cut. Oh, Jerry, I thought that was my big break, because it was the title cut for the CD.
Yes.
But unfortunately, it was his last record for WEA. And so when he changed labels, they were like, oh, we don't have to promote that. So it didn't get any promotion. But Bob James was wonderful. He was such a wonderful mentor, and it was wonderful for him to include me in on the sessions. They used my tracks, my original computer, programmed stuff. And I got to sing background vocals with Lisa Fisher, of all people. I mean, she's just a phenomenal, amazing. Yeah. I've been blessed to work with some incredible people. And then after George came the Chaka Khan thing and the Pointer Sisters thing. And like I said, then I started doing the Weather Channel stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing because we found ourselves, my band Sound Doctrine, this is 2006, 2007, with our music on the Weather Channel. It was through a blanket license through BMI and, was able to be introduced to Bob Baldwin. And, the stuff happens. And like you said, just when you think, all right, this is it, this is the launch pad right here, there's a recording contract that they're dealing with or something. And it changes, but you keep it moving.
Yeah. I mean, I moved to New York because I was promised a publishing deal by two different publishers. That didn't transpire. Both of the people who had promised me those deals actually left their jobs within 6 months of me getting here. So that was a bit, yeah.
The life of an EntreMusician.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I was actually watching the Weather Channel and I heard their music and I was like, wait a minute, I should be on there.
Right.
And this was at a time when even now, it's hard to find the one person that you need that can flick that switch and let you in.
Right.
But I worked on it and I was fortunate in that.
But you seem to me to be incredibly persistent. So anything that you really put your mind and heart to do, you seem to me to excel. And I really don't know you, but just standing on the outside looking in from the time I first reached out to you on LinkedIn, I thought, hey, she has something that's really going on. Now, while you were on the Weather Channel and while you were releasing these CDs and watching other notable people record your music, is that when you decided to found NuDay? Or
yeah, I was sick.
Did that come after? Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I've had surgery 5 times. That's what kind of stymied my music career because every single time I started to make a little leeway, I'd get sick again and have to go back in the hospital and it was all this kind of stuff. And I had one of those epiphanies where I realized, oh, wait a minute, Western medicine is not the answer, or I wouldn't have to keep going back for this. Let me work this out.
Sure.
And I had a major surgery, and it had gone. They thought that I was not going to be here. They gave me like 8 to 10 months of living time. They said, we're sorry, but get your things in order, that kind of thing. I was 24, and I was laying there in the hospital, and I was like, no. This isn't how it ends. This is not how it ends.
Correct.
And I got myself together. I started reading books. I started finding other practitioners, other health modalities. I started learning how to eat. And I went to Columbia University's Teachers College and got my certification as a health counselor, mostly for me.
Understood.
I needed to figure this out. And I was in the health food store and I saw all those concoctions and I was like, what is this about? So I went and I got certification, from that teaching background from my parents, right? So I went and got certification as an herbalist, because I wanted to know what all that stuff was. And I went and I got certification as a clinical hypnotist because once again, it was a modality that I needed to help me heal. And in doing all of that, people would ask me, oh my God, you look so good. Listen, my aunt has a this, that, and the other. And people started asking me questions about their own health. And I didn't want to just answer off the cuff. So I just kept getting more and more accreditation, like the personal trainer stuff. I didn't want to just tell people how to exercise. I wanted to do it with a little, it's like I said, from my parents' background, you always learn, get an education. Anyway. So that's how NuDay Holistic Health happened, was because so many people were asking me, how to get healthy. And I realized, okay, let me put a shingle on this and actually do it in a way that's really constructive for people. They can find out more information. So I do workshops, which I'm honored to do. I've done some free workshops in Harlem, because I'm in New York, trying to get our people to get more information about their own health, because we have an obesity epidemic that is insane.
Certainly.
We also have high levels of cholesterol and high blood pressure.
Correct.
And unfortunately, because for my certifications, I have to go back every 2 years and get recertified. Matter of fact, I'm working on my recertification as a personal trainer now. But doctors don't have to have that that, some of them specialize. Yeah, they don't. And so you've got doctors who are still preaching, for instance, the doctrine of low salt diets. That's not what causes high blood pressure. The research is in. The fact is that high blood pressure comes from high sugar levels, comes from glucose, comes from eating all those wonderful sugary foods that we enjoy. That's what raises your blood pressure. And people know this empirically because they know people who've been on a low salt diet and they still die from a heart attack. Why is that? Right. Because it's the sugar. It's not the salt. Same thing with high cholesterol. It's the sugar. And so I'm frustrated, because I do these workshops and yet people are not, I don't reach enough people. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. There's so many people who don't know. So I've been doing more online workshops too. Trying to get the message out about boosting your immune system. There's all this stuff now because of the pandemic about wearing a face mask, which is wonderful, and doing social distancing. That's cool. But what about boosting your own immune system? That's your first line of defense. You know what I mean? And it's time that but you don't hear that being preached on the news media, which is frustrating for me. I'm shocked, actually, that more people aren't talking about that, especially in light of vitamin D3, which is so important for our community because of the melanin content. Even as light as I am, I still have. And it protects us, but it also creates a barrier from us being able to really easily metabolize vitamin D3. Well, that affects your cardiovascular health. That affects your moods. That affects your obesity. That affects your weight gaining. And with your immune system for COVID-19, it's really an important supplement to be conscious of. That and zinc. Absolutely. Are so important. And for men, zinc, in women, zinc is throughout the body, but in men, the zinc level in your body is mostly concentrated in your prostate gland. Well, as you mature, what happens? You know what I mean? Yeah. Exactly. And it's like a ticking time bomb. Right. But most men aren't told that they need to supplement with zinc in order to help get that organ as healthy as it possibly can, specifically with zinc arginate. That's the one that is most concentrated, that focuses right on that prostate gland. So I've learned a lot.
No, that's good. That's good news, because it definitely, before we can talk about music and, the vital career, we have to talk about your person being healthy, you being vital. And you're right. I've had this argument, and we won't go down this street now, but I've had this argument with my personal physician since I was 35. I'm considerably older than that now, about certain prescriptions he wanted to give me, and I just absolutely refused. There's no way. This is what I'm going to do. I am going to read. I didn't do the research that you've done. I don't have any certifications, but I began reading. I mean, it's so simple. Information is out there if you want to go and get it. It's out there.
Misinformation is out there too.
No,
that's frustrating.
That's absolutely true. But, too, when you look at, I began looking at, my family line on both my mother's side, my father's side. What did so-and-so die of? What happened? How come they're wearing an oxygen mask? What is their diagnosis? And you go, okay, how can I just stop that here at this level? And you begin, like you said, the zinc, the vitamin D3. I mean, come on. I just begin to say, okay, wait a minute. Turn it off. I don't need to have coffee with 2 spoonfuls of sugar in it. I don't. I can just roll with the coffee. I mean, I'm a coffee drinker, so I know you're going to say something about that too. Yeah. I know you are, because I saw one of your videos. But I am a coffee drinker, but I cut out the sugar. So give me a little bit.
But that's the other reason I wrote the book, The Biology of Beating Stress. They had asked me to write a book about nutrition, and I was like, there's a lot of good nutrition books out there with people who have alphabets after their name. They don't need me to write a nutrition book. But there's not much information, and needs to be, about stress, because get this. You may have a gene, like you mentioned your family line. You may have a gene for prostate cancer or for cardiovascular disease. Maybe your aunt had psoriasis or something like that. So yes, that gene may be in your pool. But the thing that turns that gene on, the thing that puts that on the on switch, is something from your environment, either an environmental stress like, pollution, that kind of thing, or stress, simple stress. And your environment isn't just the air that you breathe and the water you drink. It's the people who surround you. That's part of your environment. It's, do you like your job? Do you feel secure financially? All of that. It's a big, you can't, the doctor, and that's what frustrates me about the medical community. You can't just give somebody a pill if you're not aware of how they are functioning overall as a person.
Correct.
So the stress component is enormous. Within seconds, your body actually responds to your stress. You get a phone call or a text that you weren't, oh God, I've got to deal with this. Right. In that instant, your body responds. And if you get enough of those during the day or enough little things, man, your cortisol level is up here and it's over, party over. You are in inflammation mode. And did you know that when you eat sugar, 6 hours after having sugar, your immune system is still depressed. It goes down by half when you have a sugary treat. Some of you, that soda. In that soda, for the next 6 hours after you've had that soda, your body's immune system is compromised. Why? Because you've just made your body acidic. You don't realize it. Same thing for meat eating. I'm not saying everybody has to be vegetarian. I'm not vegetarian, but we eat way too much meat. Oh my God. I know people who cannot sit down at the table without a course of meat.
Correct.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Understood. So let's do this. And you're not prepared for this, but it's good. I don't have anything up my sleeve, but let's just prepare a healthy day for the average EntreMusician as he or she gets up in the morning and prepares. They have a busy schedule. They have, like you last night, a 10-hour recording session. They have, deadlines to hit. What are you telling them to do? How can they, in that day that they know, hey, man, when I look at this calendar, tomorrow is going to be very stressful. What would you suggest that he or she does?
Literally from the morning, first thing in the morning, on an empty stomach, have like 4 ounces or 6 ounces of water with a squeeze of lemon. Helps your body be alkaline, at least starting off the day. We know you're going to do some crap later, but at least
get started, right?
Start off the day alkaline.
Yeah.
And make a list of things, a handwritten, there's this thing between our mind and our handwriting that creates an incredible link that you don't get when you type or when you text. So a handwritten list of things that have to be done for the day, so that your mind is already got that going. Actually, you should make that the night before, because it'll help you sleep. It's amazing what the mind does. If you do that handwritten list, and just a list, not a journal, not paragraphs, of things that have to be happen during the day, like conversations you may need to have, need to talk with so-and-so, need to buy toothpaste, that list allows your subconscious mind not to have to remind you of those things when you're trying to sleep. It's a simple concept, but people don't know to do it. And also breathing throughout the day, whether you think you've had stress or not, because I guarantee you, before we leave home, have had more stress in our day in the morning than our bodies were meant to have in months. So whether you think you've had stress or not, take a few simple deep breaths a couple of times during the day, just a couple of times during the day, and it slows down that cortisol response. It subliminally, again, tells your subconscious mind that there is no tiger chasing you, because your brain doesn't know that you're not under attack. All these little texts, all these little interruptions that you think is just stress, your body thinks you're being attacked.
Wow.
So if you just slow it down several times during the day, whether you think you know it or not, and whether you think I'm crazy or not, even just getting more oxygen to your brain is a good thing. Yes. So just take some deep breaths throughout the day. I had to remind myself when I was sitting at the computer doing, and instead of coffee, all right, are you ready? Because believe me, I literally was up all night. I mean, I went to bed at 7 this morning. So here's what you do. As if you're grabbing something out of the air, right? You do this. and you do it like 20 times.
Okay.
Oh my God, you get so high and your brain gets so much oxygen. It's incredible. And that is what you do instead, my friend, of having coffee. That high that you get from doing that will last you about 3 to 4 hours.
Interesting. Because of the
oxygen intake. In through the nose, out through the mouth, like 20 times, as fast as you possibly can, and giving it a pulling motion at the same time.
Gotcha.
Amazing pick-me-up. I mean, it'll blow your mind.
I will try that. I will try that. So you're in the studio now. So you've had your water, you've had your deep breath, you're getting ready to leave, you've made the list the night before, you know, you're in it, and you're on like take number 40 because the saxophone player just is not laying it down the way you think. No, I'm not picking on saxophone players. Could be the flautist, whatever.
Or the drummer's hi-hat. The drummer's hi-hat keeps falling apart because he's holding it up by some...
No, that's not, we don't work with drummers like that.
or his foot pedal is squeaking on every doggone take.
Okay, we'll go with the squeaky foot pedal. So you're there behind the glass, and what are you doing? Are you breathing?
So you excuse yourself and you go to the washroom because you don't want people to see you do it. But you go to the washroom and you and you get that thing back up. I mean, seriously, it lifts you back up. You come back in that room, you're like, all right, let's go. You know?
All is well.
Yes. Yes, and people are like, what's she doing in the washroom? I want to know.
Come out with a can of WD-30 too. That might help you.
Yeah. So instead of those little shots, instead of those caffeine shots.
Yeah. Well, I've never used those, but I'm a coffee drinker. I do like coffee. I don't do the, what do you call that? You know, the, whatever those things are called. Cappuccinos and the whole deal, just espresso. It's for, you know, the flavored thing. I'm just like, yo, I'll take a cup of coffee. I'm good with it. But I'm not trying to give myself an excuse. We're moving through the recording session. So, all right, how are we ending our day? We've instituted those things, and so it's time to, you know, check out for the evening. Are we doing anything to bring us down to help us relax? What's happening?
Get this. So, I mean, and there's tons of science behind even this. That's science. There's a mechanism that happens. You're actually getting more nitric oxide through breathing in through your nose, but it's a whole other thing. So if you take some deep breaths and you take more time breathing out, sustaining the breath out than you do coming in, you actually change the autonomic nervous system. You literally turn off that cortisol response. And it's a simple thing. You take 2 quick breaths in through your nose, filling your lungs to capacity. So like, long out, right?
Okay.
It's amazing what it does, both psychologically, but physically to the body. It literally turns off that cortisol response. And like I said, making that list, that's in my book and my workbook, the Be More Stress Less workbook. I have worksheets in there for people to use at night before they go to bed, and creating their own liberation word. I love coining that term because it's liberating the mind. You see, people get looping thoughts. You know, that thing that you meant to do that you forgot, or that conversation you were telling somebody off or something, or even just a song that you can't get out of your head. Sure. Well, the brain can only handle one thing at a time. Like you can't spell your name backwards and multiply 4 by 12, can you?
I've never tried.
So the concept is simply this: find a word. I use the word zucchini. I don't know why, I just chose that word. Find a word that you can use, a nonsense word, and just keep repeating it to yourself over when you're trying to sleep and you can't get the brain to stop. Just find a word and just repeat it to yourself over and over again. Or when you have a looping thought and you want to stop that thought, you know, or when you have, do you see what I mean? Whenever you need to stop this.
Yeah.
Whatever is causing you to go there, just find a nonsense word and repeat it to yourself over and over and over again. It crowds out your brain's ability to use your your subconscious to feed you all these thoughts.
Yeah.
You remember when you saw babies when they're little and they do all that coo, and they're making all those noises and they're practicing speech, basically, right?
Yeah, right.
You have a speech center in your brain that is still there when you're an adult. And it was used for that back then. But now you know how to talk. So it's not doing anything. It's just hanging out. Well, that's what your subconscious mind grabs onto. And that's where you get the looping thoughts. It grabs onto that thing that used to be useful, that's just sitting there, that speech center, and it starts looping thoughts. That's the way you turn it off. Find a nonsense word and just repeat it to yourself over and over again. Now your brain can't focus on anything else other than that nonsense word, and it frees you. Wow. So if I am at the end of my night and I've done my breathing, settled myself down, but I still have a nagging thought. I've done my list so that, I know what I'm doing tomorrow. I can put that out of my mind. I don't have to think about those things anymore. Mm-hmm. But I still have some little niggling thought that's keeping me from really, I do a liberation word. So those are the 3 key elements that I would say to help yourself modulate yourself back down so that you can actually get a restful sleep, because you're fatigued. So you will sleep. You'll drop off like that, but it won't be that deep, restful sleep that you really need. You won't do as many REM cycles. You go through a REM cycle every 90 minutes when you sleep, and you need all 8 of those in order to really get your brain refreshed. They're neurotrophic brain factors that actually cleanse the brain, and it doesn't happen if you don't sleep.
I see. Now, do you take your musicians through this practice when you guys are recording or when you are preparing for a performance?
No, we're just doing our thing. What? I most of the time don't even tell music. No, I really don't tell people that I do the health thing.
Is that right?
Now it's off. Now you screwed me up.
Good. No, I thought really, truly that as I'm looking, and again, I haven't done deep research as you have, but as I'm studying you to prepare for our conversation, and I'm looking at all of the stuff that you have available, I'm wondering, where's the link? And that's why I had that conversation with my wife, thinking, man, I could see where EntreMusicians really could use this information. Because again, I say 2 things here. First of all, we do concentrate on the mindset, discipline, and the focus of the EntreMusician. And the second thing is, it's more about who we are than what we do. I'm a guitarist, I'm a pianist, okay, that's fine. Yet there are some underlying spiritual and emotional dynamics that make you, that your character and your intentionality, those things really help so that you can be the best at what you do. Because if you're not together, then we shed on our instruments, we practice, but we practice in a way that is going to better us. It's not just muscle memory for drummers or for saxophone. It's really, we're trying to convey this emotion, this thought, this idea. So I'm really into what's happening behind the sheet music and not just, hey, we got to do this gig. So I thought your research and the material that you have available would be a great marriage. So being that you don't tell the musicians that, I'm a little disappointed.
I try to keep the 2 lives separate, the 2 crazy separate. But you mentioned that I'm actually worried too about, nowadays, like even with this new project, people are not expecting to have to pay these days for music. They're accustomed to streaming for free. They don't want to pay for music. Even like master bassist Ron Carter, he's selling mugs and T-shirts and stuff to make money. He's not, so you, like you said, you hone your craft. You do all this practicing, and for the writing that I do, I get inspiration during the night or whenever or wherever, and I hone the craft of lyric writing because I want to get that just the right phrase, and I want to tell the story that's going to really grab your heart. And I'm going through all this stuff, and yet I'm not expected to make money from it. I'm expected to put that online for free. It's blowing my mind. And I'm supposed to monetize it through selling other stuff, keychains, zip drives. Really? I mean,
That's a whole nother conversation. It really is. And I've had it. And, you know, I sit in a mastermind group and we talk about this on a weekly basis because you are worthy of the work that you're producing. If I call a plumber over, the plumber is going to give me a bill for the pipes. You know, if I call an electrician, they're going to give me a bill. Musicians, we put thousands and thousands of dollars in our studio spaces, thousands. Okay, and so the software company doesn't care about your song. This is what the software costs. This is what the console costs. This is what the microphone costs, and you pay that. But then when your art, when your creativity, when your soul goes out, you're expected to, you know, it used to be at least 99 cents for the download, but now it's a fraction of a penny. It's not right. And so we need to educate ourselves and hone, you know, if Ron Carter, who is the ultimate bassist, if he has to sell a t-shirt, something's wrong. We need to fix it.
But there's an expectation that music be free. And I get it, you know, even movies, even film companies are having trouble because people are, you know, pirating, etc. So it's just, it's a strange time. How do you get people to value? And this goes back to valuing Black culture.
That's correct.
How do you get people to value it when it's free, when it's, you know what I mean? When it's, I don't know, I'm struggling to understand how we fix our cultural awareness, because our culture is so vital. It's so important, and it's so amazing, the depth of our culture. You know, I had proposed to people that we have a day, and they think I'm crazy, a day to honor the slaves. People were like, ooh. And I was like, without those people, we wouldn't be here. Those people were amazing. And we don't have a celebrate slave. I mean, is that crazy? That sounds nuts, right?
Well, it sounds nuts, but I understand the context beyond it, you know, and, you know, even with respect to quote unquote Black History Month, I've heard all aspects of why we should have a Black History Month, why it's unnecessary. And I get the context behind it, but honor and really treasuring the legacy that makes you you is absolutely important.
Oh my God, those are some amazing people, and we don't know their names.
Correct.
We know only bits and pieces of their story and their legacy, but oh my God, we are their children.
That's right. Even in my own prayer life, I'm a man of faith. So when I'm praying and when I'm meditating, and I'm thinking about, you know, the ancestry that I don't know and what he or she had to go through for me to be here, what they had to endure for me to drive the car that I drive, to live in the neighborhood that I live in, to be able to afford the house. That's their blood. You know, that's their sweat. That's the insults and the degradation that they had to endure for Jerry to be sitting right here. It's amazing. And so you have to take the time to stop and really bring honor to that legacy. You absolutely do. But nobody says that. I mean, in the mass media, even, you know, among Black culture, that's not taught as mainstream. Like, this is what you have to.
Well, we still have that shame about having once been property, that shame of slavery, that stigma, and
I think the fact that we've overcome, I think the fact that we have, by God's grace, those barriers have been broken. You know what I'm saying? And you can stand up and be the man and the woman that you should be. Yeah, a little bit. But there have been great strides. We cannot argue that. When we have the foremost educators, athletes, musicians who have been at the pioneer.
But the disparity of income between a Black middle-class person and a white middle-class income is a chasm. It's an illusion.
And I think that's I think that's our fault. I think some of that is our fault.
Really?
I think that I do. I do. I think some of that, not all of it, but some of it is our fault. I mean, as you said before, there's an underlying shame that we have. I think we carry this psychological baggage that, well, that's just the way it is. And there's not enough of us that are saying, let's strive forward. This is what we can do. I mean, there are industries that we can own and operate, but we always seem to think, quote unquote, well, the white man won't let us do this. Well, look, we got to break that cycle in our home. I mean, we can go down that street, but there, my wife and I, we talk about it all the time because we are both entrepreneurs. And this is something that we can harness, and we teach that to our children. This is something that we can harness, because if I'm always looking, now I have to network. I mean, I'm not in a bubble, I'm not on an island, and I'm not a silo. So we definitely have to work within the larger community to make these happen. But what do you do when you get it? Do you then isolate those who look just like you and who don't have what you've been blessed to have? Or do you begin that process of helping to teach, helping to train, and bring them into the knowledge you now have? I think not enough of that, not enough of us, our people, really take that and put that on our shoulders of responsibility.
But check this out. Here is the thing that I run up against when I'm talking about health. Our community has an obesity issue.
We do.
We have food deserts where they can't even get to a decent quality food. But underlying all of that, Jerry, in order to do self-care, you have to have self-worth. You have to feel that you are worthy of that.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I run up against. Instead, I get people who have not got that. I did a podcast, some school teachers. It turned out they were, one taught at a public high school, the other taught at a, what do you call those, charter grammar school. Mm-hmm. And they said, but still like 8th grade kids. But anyway, they said, we run into these kids all day long. Jeanne, what do we do all day long? They have no self-esteem. They hate themselves. Mm-hmm. They have a culture where they're on their phones and they're texting, but they don't have any sense of self. They're so depressed. And she was telling me what they ate, and I was like, oh my God, well, yeah, that's not going to help either.
Sure.
But what do we do to inspire these kids? I mean, that's the next generation, and they're not getting fed. They're not getting fed. You know what I'm saying?
I can't stress enough. I think it's our fault. I think you and I and her and him and you who are watching, I think that because you know this knowledge, then you have a sphere of influence, whether it's your home or your neighborhood or your church or your school system.
But if they don't have the self-esteem, if they don't like themselves well enough to feel that they're worthy, then they can't spread any message. They can't even absorb any message of healing and health.
So that's, I mean, there are no easy answers, but I still say it begins with the one. What I have to do, and I'll say this, we'll go down the street for just 14 seconds, but my wife and I both came from broken homes. We're both, know the pain and heartache of divorce. We know that. So even when we began dating, we began talking about what type of family we wanted to have. Now this, and our children will never know the pain of divorce. Now, I brought a child into the marriage because I became a father at 17. Mm-hmm. So my wife decided, she said, well, I don't want to do the stepmom thing. Let's just get custody of your daughter. And when my daughter was 11, she came to live with us. So we begin with the intentionality that, so now what do we do with respect to our larger family, our brothers and sisters and their children and whatnot? You have to begin that identification of who you are, and this is who we are, and this is what our family is about, and this is what our larger family is about. But wait a minute, what about the neighbor across the street who doesn't have that same experience because they are in a broken situation? Well, as they're coming and dialoguing with our kids, they're getting a sense of what this wholeness looks like. And then it just spreads and it begins to multiply. I mean, we can do that. Or we can say to the kid across the street or the family across the street, we don't care anything about you. This is us. This is ours. And I think there's too much of that. We got ours together. And so, but you have to stretch out. And that's where it begins to grow and multiply. So I don't know, there's a part of me, and I may be 100% wrong, that I always look inward to say, well, I have a responsibility about this. There's something that I can do. And then if I can do it, and my wife and I can do it, and then my sister and my brother-in-law can do it, you know what I mean? Then it begins.
Jerry, you don't recognize that you are a unicorn. That's the problem.
Well, I guess, I'll concede to that, but I just think There's a pattern there. It can happen. I've seen the success. I've seen the failures. It's not, like a cookie cutter situation. I get that. But if enough of us who are of our generation, you were born in the late 50s, you were born in the 60s, you've seen, earlier, but you can see, I mean, we have that link to the past. We know what it was like. I know who my great grandmother was. I know, you know what I'm saying? There's something that you can see there and you can go, okay, well, it doesn't always have to be this way. You had mentioned early in our conversation about real instruments versus beats. Now they took the beats because, the school systems did not provide. I took home a trumpet. I took home a saxophone. I took home a saxophone just because I wanted to try it out and see, but it was readily available.
Perfect. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But when that stopped, and yes, the kids did with the samples and the recording and all of that, what they could with the technology, but to be able to hold a trumpet in your hand and go, wow, look at these sounds. To be able to put it to your lips. I mean, there's nothing like it. But we who are the older musicians, we can get to that guy across the street, that little kid, and go, hey, have you ever seen a trumpet before? Have you ever held it in your hand? So the schools are not doing it. I can't, go legislate for that, but I can open my heart up and I can pour into you. All right. That wasn't even what our conversation was supposed to be about, but we're here. You know what I mean?
Unicorn, you're supposed to be in jail and you're not. You don't recognize.
I'm not, but I have been to jail. Okay. I have been to jail. That's a whole nother conversation. If you were interviewing me when you put me on your podcast, I'll tell my story. But I'm
gonna hold you to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I'm all for personal responsibility. I may not be able to do all that, but what is the one or two things that I can do? And when I'm faithful to that, is going to help better the next person. I went to jail, but I didn't go back.
I'm just saying it's hard to hold people responsible. And maybe I'm missing it when they don't have self-love. And
so you gotta love them. You gotta love them.
Only goes so far.
Just one person. I can't love 57 people. My life won't allow me to do that. I'm talking about within the respect of a larger community. But there's the little kid down the street who I know both of his parents are either they're not together or they work around the clock and he's a latchkey kid. Okay. So what can I do? Can I take him to the park? Can I have that one conversation with the father, with the mother and say, hey, you know what? We have kids and we would like little Johnny to come over on Saturdays and just hang out with us. Would that be okay? I
see your point. One-on-one as opposed to, I'm always looking to move the whole group. I want everybody.
And if you do, you can't, then you really are not effective to what you're put on this planet to do. And I realize that I only have so much time. I don't know when the Lord is going to call my name, and that's it for me. So I know that I need to prioritize. However, who I can help, while I can help them, I got to be committed to that one or two or three people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for allowing me to sabotage your conversation.
I know. Now I'm all out there.
But this is what I told you, at the beginning, we're just going to have a conversation. I'm really grateful. I really am. And I'm not trying to spin this back on orbit or anything, but I'm really grateful for what I have seen, because again, when I reached out to you on LinkedIn, I had already kind of checked out your website, checked out your music. And I thought, this is a woman of substance. And I think this would be a great conversation. So what you've done and what you've been able to accomplish, I think is a great inspiration to EntreMusicians everywhere. I really mean that. What I do want to ask, however, is what do you find, or what have you found to be the most challenging aspects of being a musician or being a creative? Have you, what would you say, this is the one that really gets it for me, and this is the barrier that I'm trying to fight right now?
Biggest barrier I'm trying to fight right now is I've got the content, I've got music that I'm honored to have recorded and finished, and it's sitting there. The biggest challenge is being effective on the internet, being able to, there's so much out there, so being able to have my voice heard, being able to get eyes on my site, that is the challenge, is being relevant and being, accessible. Yeah. I was discouraged when I heard Beyonce had put out her album, and like 3 o'clock in the morning, she sold 3 million copies like that. And they considered that a failure. I was like, wait a minute, I would kill to get 3 million people.
Absolutely.
So that's the challenge, is being effective on the internet and getting people really getting the buzz going. That's my challenge, is getting my music heard.
And that's a challenge for a lot of us. I mean, I remind EntreMusicians all the time that Spotify drops or adds to their platform 40,000 songs a day. So there are significant things that you need to do to raise your voice. And I think, I'm not saying dumb down at all your expectations. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying there's a process, just like you were talking about with respect to going through a day. There's a process of how we need to hone our craft, our tribes. Seth Godin, it goes back to his great book, Tribes, of saying, this is my family. This is my musical family. These are my fans. There may be 5, there may be 50, but what do I do to create this organic structure where they know this is me? It's almost like a cult following, like Parliament Funkadelic back in the 70s. They didn't have everybody, but those they had were theirs. You know what I mean? And so creating those connections of ownership, where I don't need the whole internet, I don't need the 3 million people, but you know what? These 35, these 350, these 3,000 that I have, you know, how to process.
You're good at that. I guess you're the same thing with the other topic we were on. I keep going big tent. I want everybody. And you keep going, no. If you can just. So I'm going to work on that. I didn't realize that was an issue for me. Thank you for this therapy session.
Hey, it's both of us. This is back and forth. It's back and forth, but that's something, I mean, Seth Godin and many EntreMusicians may know his work, but, you know, he really, when he started Tribes, it was a whole different way of thinking as far as marketing is concerned, because everybody is not my fan. They're not, you know, the type of music that I make, because I make some strange music. I mean, it's based in jazz, but we call it original alternative funk jazz fusion. That's sound doctrine music. And that gives us the liberty to play what we want to play, because we feel like this. This is how we feel right now. And that doesn't work for everybody, you know, because if you're on a record label, they want you got to fit this box. If you're hitting radio, you know, they told us when we got on the Weather Channel, and we spent 2 years on the Weather Channel. And I can tell you, what's the dude's name at that time? His name was Brian.
Brian Picard.
Picard. Okay, so we put in, and I've talked about this in other videos I've done on the EntreMusician, but Brian Picard, good dude. We established a great rapport, but we put out this single called Marriage. It had the wonderful Reagan Whiteside on flute. It had Cliff Barnes on piano and the magical Keith McKelly on saxophone. It was a great, great track. And Brian called me after I sent it to him. He said, listen, they had just got a new music programmer and they don't want any flutes on the Weather Channel anymore. What are you talking about? No flutes. Can you send me a remix without the flute? Are you kidding? This is Reagan Whiteside. What are you talking about? So my wife and I had a great, I love her so much, you know, I mean, we bounce back and forth. She's like, well, the royalty checks have been very good. You know what I mean? And so we hired Angel Lopez, wonderful acoustic guitar, played the acoustic guitar in and put that in there. But here was the thing for me. Jerry had to ask the question. I had to say, can I be bought and sold though for a flute? This was the mix that I wanted the world to hear. You dig it? And so it's like still even now, and this is 15, 16 years later, I'm thinking, I want to only do what I want to do.
I would get programmers who would get confused and not include my music because they couldn't figure out, well, wait a minute, you do vocals and you play guitar. it was confusing to them.
Yeah.
They wanted a CD that only had one thing. If it was guitar, it was just guitar. And because I had both, I got people who would not play myself because they couldn't literally take the time to figure out what, even if I sent a list of here's the tunes that are guitar, here's the tunes that are vocal.
Yeah.
You can choose.
Yeah.
It was too confusing for them. And I got a lot of flack for putting both, even though Quincy Jones used to do it all the time.
Constantly. Yeah. Boom, 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 boom. This is the album that ship it. That was the album. They had everything on it, right?
Exactly. But no, it confused them that it had vocal songs and instrumentals. What is it? It's a zebra. What?
Right. But here's a lesson that I learned, Jeanne. I learned this in 2002, and I learned it on our first album. And it's a story that continues to inspire me. This is a real woman who sent me a 3-paragraph email because of the song that we had written and put on our first CD. It was called Under the Shadow. And she said her mom was passing away from cancer and she was going into hospice. And as they were playing the CD, her mother asked her, hey, can you just put that song on repeat? Oh. So she said that song must have looped about 75 times as her mom was passing from this world into eternity. Oh my God. So from that story, you can't give me a Grammy. You can't give me an award that is going to like satisfy me. Like, so-and-so, this station is not going to play it. But you know what? It resonated with somebody. Yeah. So I'm just out of the whole fanfare thing. It has its place. Recognition has its place. By God's grace, we've won a lot of different awards, the Soul Patrol Awards, different accolades, even the Ohio Music Awards, because that's where we are. That's great. But nothing hits like, wow, she was listening to our music while she was passing on. That one song resonated.
Wow.
That's it. So I don't know. I'm a little whatever, the unicorn, but it's like there are things and there's music that I want to make, and I know that person who's listening on the other side is making the connection. Because if it's just a stream on Spotify and whatever, because remember the trend went to making songs shorter so that they can get more streams. So now a song is like 1 minute and 33 seconds. And like, that's the format. You can't even get into the groove after 1 minute and 33 seconds. Come on, where's the bridge? What are we doing?
Oh, somebody was saying, they're like, Jeanne, you can't have a change, no changing, and no intro. What's with that intro? It's 4 bars, that's it, 2 bars. I was like, wow. I used to love intros. I used to love to just kind of open up into the story, Come
on, Knee Deep was 15 minutes and 33 seconds. 15 minutes, and if the DJ played the short version, he was gonna get his butt kicked. You're gonna play all 15 minutes of that, right? You know what I mean? So, come on.
And then to shift the groove mid-text or raise the key, oh my God, it just takes you in another direction.
Exactly right.
Like that tune I sent you, War and Insufficient Peace. Right. Do you notice when Bobby comes in with that piano solo? Yes. Like, whoa, wait a minute. It's like somebody just opened the window.
That's right.
He took it in a whole other direction I wasn't even expecting. When I heard that solo, I was like, ooh, I never thought of it. I didn't hear that chord. That's those moments that you wait for. And when you're in the studio and you've written a bass line, but the bass player, he's hearing something else. Maybe there's a figure he's been working on or something. And he comes out with something, you're like, whoa. That's what I miss, is being able to be in the studio and just mix it up, Take that time to really develop a song.
That's right. Even
though you've written out. I mean, what I do is basically musical masturbation. I sit there and I write everything myself. I do all the parts. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to do. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad I can do it. But I miss that chemistry, that thing that happens when somebody else's mind comes in and brings you their experience, brings you their heart, brings you that thing that inspires them. When he sat there, like I said, when I first heard that solo, he's in Chicago, so he sent me the track here in New York, and I put it up there. I'm putting it in, like, okay, here it comes. Whoa, what just happened?
Absolutely. No, you're right. I mean, there was a time in the 80s, early 90s where it became the segue into the solo artist. And so bands were not the thing anymore. And, you know, I grew up with bands. And so there was a variety of thought, which made the music really thick. And if we were just going to look at Lakeside or the Barcades or Cameo, Earth, Wind and Fire, you know, there's 11, 12 people that are responsible for this thing happening. And even though you had a central, you had the Maurice White, you had the leader of the band, and they may have been the, you know, musical director, there was still all of these personalities and this spirit which contributed.
It's a stew.
Exactly. But you saw when it came down to it wasn't the Jackson Fives, it was Michael Jackson. It wasn't Cameo, 11 people in the band, it was only 3.
Larry Blackman.
Larry Blackman. But you saw the music suffer, and I was a huge Cameo fan, but Knights of the Sound Table and Word Up are 2 different albums because there was a consolidation of thought. It was the musical masturbation. It was just, you know, the wider context that you got with the horns and the strings and all of that, and then everything just became synthesized. It's like, okay, that's good, but it's a shell of your former self, you know. And we saw that happen over and over when Earth, Wind and Fire shrank down and it was just the 4 guys.
After In the Stone, after that album. But I gotta tell you too, it's the emulation too. Did you notice that male singers, you don't have those male voices anymore. Those
that's right. The Teddy
Jeffrey Osborne.
Jeffrey Osborne, right.
Yeah, Gerald Albright, Peebo Bryson.
That's correct. Glenn Douglas, you know, yeah, all those. The
voices are now thinner and you know, I'm not to say anything against it. It's just that what happened to that masculine woo, you know? Whoa.
What happened to masculine rap? I think KRS-One did a nice video on that, how, you know, the masculinity has been taken out of hip hop, even. So
but hip hop itself, do you realize that when the record companies realized that, for instance, young white males, their revolution music had been always rock, but suddenly in like the late 70s, early 80s, they started moving towards black music, in particular that hip hop genre.
Right.
And so the record labels said, oh, well, wait a minute. Okay, so we don't need to fund R&B or soul music or any of that. We're just going to fund the hip hop because that's what's making us money. And so they literally stole the money from over here where there was creative stuff here and just went to this creative stuff here. And then they said, well, wait a minute, the stories that you guys are talking, all that black pride stuff, we need stories that are a little more violent. Can you give us more of this thing here?
Correct.
And that's when you stopped it, because remember, originally there was brag rap. I mean, it was like, I'm this, I'm that.
I'm the best MC, I can rock the mic, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, then it got, you know, it was all about the violent thing because the white males were needing that for their rebellious side. It was more white people buy white hip hop than blacks. That's just the market value. That's it. Yeah. And so they had to make sure that they got their rebellious music.
Yeah.
And that's why hip hop is filled now with this culture of violence.
That's correct.
Because that's what they'll pay for. That's what the record company will pay for.
And it's unfortunate because it's playing out beyond the studio. It's playing out in the street. And that's just, you know, what it is. Now, 100 years ago, when I was a youth pastor, and it reminds me of what you said about the mentor who taught you about tones and you know, frequencies. But, you know, there was a time when music had a higher tempo. You know, we were at 110, we were at 115. And actually, if you look at their gangster rap as it began to come in, actually, it was slowed down. The tempo was slowed down where it was more into your heartbeat, you know, and it just had, and it's opened up a gate with more dissonant chords, you know, and that's how the Murderous lyrics were able to come in, because it actually opened up a gate for you.
Interesting.
You know, I took my youth group through that just to see, because you got Will Smith on one hand, Parents Just Don't Understand, Jazzy Jeff, you know, and it was just like hip hop, you know, the Sugar Hill Gang. And then it just slowed down to where now, instead of togetherness music like the Earth, Wind and Fire, instead of just, we're going to have a good time, we're going to party, you know, some of that.
Yes, what happened to that?
But no, we're going to put each other's head out.
Okay, as a musician, I listen to the lyrics, and child, the lyrics are so disparaging. Even if it's love, it's what I'm gonna do to you with the. I mean, it's like, and why is it because I watch videos while I'm just walking around, and on Vivo, if I change to the country western channel, well, it's all heart song stories, and then I turn to the black channel, it's soft porn. What the heck?
Correct.
I mean, it's
that's correct.
It's not
and
even
that's
subtle.
Us. It's us. See, now that goes back to
no, that's not us. That's what they'll pay for.
However, we did in our let's go back to the 50s. Let's go
marketing.
But here's the thing. This is not going to be. I'm hoping this is going to be 3 or 4 conversations. We're gonna have to like stop somewhere and have that conversation. But when the police dogs were after us and they were turning the fire hoses on us, there was one thing they couldn't take away from us, and that was our unity. Okay, that was our pride in who we were, even though we were under the Jim Crow.
That was because it was a mantra that was going through the Black community. And that was centered in the church, but also in community organizations. We don't have that central focus now, and we don't have a single voice.
So you and I, it's 2 people.
Oh, there you go with that one-on-one thing. Oh.
It's 2 people, okay? And you know someone, and I know someone. And they know someone. And they know someone, right? And say, okay, what happened? We all, because here's the common thing. We can talk about this, and we can talk about this in a room full of 300 people, and they all are going to agree. Yes, the music used to be here, and then it went here. Our culture used to be here. We had standards, we had principles, we had character, church, community groups, but now we don't. Okay, well, who's going to do something about it? Well, I don't know. It takes you and me and them. She, her, him. And we have to turn it around. It's us. Because if we don't, that next generation of children that you were talking about, they're lost. Forget them, write them off. It's over. Skip it, it's done.
But the thing is, they're more connected than ever because of these wonderful devices we have. We are in touch. We should be able to have a movement overnight. Look how quickly, you remember those rallies they were having that they overnight? Well, come on, we can do this. I don't understand why we have more connection than ever, and we're more separated than ever.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
And disconnections. Well, I am going to count on you, Jeanne, to start the process.
No, not me.
You count on me to start the process here in Ohio. You're in New York, I'm in Ohio, and we start the process together. And we begin the dialogue, and you bring 2 people in, and I'll bring 2 people in, and we'll see how can we get it started. And maybe, and we have a gentleman, as a matter of fact, his name is Vale Lewis. He's a jazz organist out in Texas, started a great foundation on giving the arts back to the youth. And so Vale is that's another voice. So there you go. There's 3 people, 3 EntreMusicians.
Oh my goodness.
Then there's Linda Bolero out. She's a vocal coach out at Berklee School of Music. She's a part of our mastermind group. I mean, these are conversations that happen, but they happen in these silos. Once we can bring these voices together, you watch it. The only reason that evil expands is because good men and good women do nothing. We talk about it, we complain about it, we wonder about it, but now we have to be about it.
All right.
This has been a great conversation. Now let me ask you this one final question, okay? There was probably something on your mind when you thought, hey, I'm going to do this conversation with Jerry. We're going to do the EntreMusician, and I know he's going to ask me this, and I haven't asked it. What is that unasked question? What is that answer to that you can give me?
Actually, nothing. You've really exposed my entire thing. I'm supposed to keep the things separate, and you surprised me. I didn't know you'd been to NuDay. This
is what it is. Those musicians that you work with, whether online or off, if they're in your studio or if they're across the world, they got to know what you shared with us here. And it has to become this movement. Because you can't have all of that wonderful information on your right hand and then that wonderful guitar and beautiful vocal. Or you can't do it. It's one and the same.
Right brain, left brain, separate.
Unity. So you don't have an answer to the next question? You think we covered it?
No, you covered everything.
That's good.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jeanne Ricks. She is an incredible EntreMusician. I'm going to link to all of her stuff, whether you're listening on her podcast or watching her on the EntreMusician.com, YouTube, wherever you're watching this, you're going to be able to have access to all of her information. Dive in. If you're suffering with stress or anxiety, she's giving some great Bible tips here, but there's more. And you can read them in her wonderful book, The Biology of Beating Stress. And just tap into her website and let's go for this together. Now, all the other stuff that we've talked about, let's begin to cycle it in your own spheres of influence. That's Jeanne Ricks. She's an EntreMusician. My name is Jerry D. I'm an EntreMusician, but you know what? So are you. We will see you again next time. Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you.